Hancock announced a new variant of the COVID-19 virus has been identified, which he said may be spreading more quickly than previous strains. Here he is in the House of Commons earlier.
We've currently identified over 1,000 cases with this variant, predominantly in the south of England, although cases have been identified in nearly 60 different local authority areas, and numbers are increasing rapidly. Similar variants have been identified in other countries over the last few months. We've notified the World Health Organization about this new variant, and Public Health England is working hard to continue its expert analysis at Porton Down. Mr. Speaker, I must stress at this point that there is currently nothing to suggest that this variant is more likely to cause serious disease, and the latest clinical advice is that it's highly unlikely that this mutation would fail to respond to a vaccine. But it shows we've got to be vigilant and follow the rules, and everyone needs to take personal responsibility not to spread this virus.
Well, during the same speech, he also confirmed that Greater London, along with parts of Essex and Hertfordshire, will move into England's top tier of coronavirus restrictions. That's tier 3 from Wednesday.
Which means that pubs and restaurants have to close apart from takeaway and delivery services. People won't be able to meet others from outside their own household or bubble anywhere indoors and at most outdoor venues as well. And it means no sports fans in stadiums as well.
Yeah, Matt Hancock said the action had to be taken immediately to slow the rate of infection.
I know that this is difficult news, and I know that it will mean plans disrupted, and that for businesses affected, it will be a significant blow. But this action is absolutely essential, not just to keep people safe, but because we've seen early action can help prevent more damaging and longer-lasting problems later. Mr. Speaker, these restrictions will come into force at midnight on Wednesday morning. Because when the virus moves quickly, we must move quickly too. And we must take the actions that are not necessarily easy, but are effective.
Well, despite cases continuing to rise in parts of the country, Number 10 said that the government has no plans to review the Christmas guidelines, which, of course, effectively suspend the tier system of restrictions for a few days over Christmas and allow a fixed number of households, but more than usual, to mix together. Well, let's talk to Dr. Bharat Pankhania, who's Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let's start first of all with Matt Hancock's announcement there about this new variant of coronavirus that's been identified. On the face of it, it sounds like a worrying development, but we were talking to our medical editor, Fergus Walsh, earlier, and he says actually there are already quite a lot of variants in circulation.
I agree with your medical editor, and these are RNA viruses. So as they reproduce, they produce different branches, and then different branches become the main branches or the predominant strain, so to speak. So for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, I would describe it as follows. Imagine a giant oak tree, and then that oak tree has got many trunks, and one of them becomes the principal trunk in your region. And that is exactly what happens with these RNA viruses. That doesn't mean that your immunity is now null and void. It doesn't necessarily also mean that the vaccines are now null and void. And with respect to the vaccines, if there was a big change in the spike protein, we can refashion the vaccines. So again, I wouldn't be too worried about that alarm amongst our listeners and viewers.
Matt Hancock said that it may be associated with faster spread in the southeast of England. Maybe obviously isn't a confirmation, but how would that happen? How would a variant mean that something would spread faster?
Well, if that is the case, which I would sort of say, I question you. So if hypothetically it was a more infectious strain, it basically means that it is able to latch onto human cell receptors more efficiently, more effectively, and create more asymptomatic illness such that there are more infectious people infecting others. That would be the scenario. My view is, let us see what actually has happened. What is the big change? And I would say this would be part of the normal changes rather than a dramatic change for us to sit up and say, oh no, what's going on here?
Obviously, the news that he was announcing was that London and parts of southeast England will move into tier 3 from Wednesday, and he made the point that this needed to be done quickly. Now, tiers are due to be reviewed this week anyway, only in a few days' time. But he made the decision that it had to be done immediately. How much difference can a few days make?
It makes a big difference. And if you had watched me sitting here as I listened to that, my eyebrows were raised. And my eyebrows were raised as follows. If you think it is as important as it is, and I agree it is important, why wait until Wednesday? Why can't you act today? And I know that if you acted suddenly like that, it introduces disruption. But there is a pattern with our decision makers whereby they always tend to delay by a few days or a few weeks before they make a decision. And important decisions like these are best made as soon as possible.
Are you still comfortable with the Christmas easing that's happening for a few days where 3 households can mix together? Is that something that you still feel should happen?
No, I've always been very concerned about it, and here is the evidence if any were needed. Have a look at what happened in the United States of America. They had their Thanksgiving gathering equivalent to our Christmas gathering to be, and soon after their Thanksgiving, 2.5 weeks later, they had a huge surge in number of cases. And similarly, I'm also very concerned that the narrative from our leaders is it is okay to remove restrictions for 5 days over the Christmas period. In my opinion, it is not okay. Once we have created that trend of people meeting up, infections will happen and case numbers will go up.
What would you say to people who hear and understand what you're saying, but who feel perhaps from a personal mental health point of view that they would want to see their loved ones over Christmas? Because we've always talked about the fact that there are different things to be balanced and taken into account. What would you say to those people who might now be wavering and not sure about what to do?
Well, look, the way I look at it is when I did a lot of mental health psychiatry and those things, it is the looking forward to. And the looking forward to takes away a lot of the stresses and mental anguish. So I want to say, I want you to all feel we are looking forward to a better 2021. And I'm not making it up, because very soon we are going to deploy wholesale mass immunization program. And once that immunization program takes off, things will start to get better. So there is a lot of true, honest things to look forward to in 2021. Just hold your horses. I don't want to be raising my glasses to departed friends. And that's the way to sell it, because this is important. Don't get infected. Don't infect others. Look out for a better 2021.
I just wanted to ask you briefly as well about the fact that some council areas in London have decided to shut schools for the last week of term. And we know that secondary schools and colleges in Wales have gone online as well. Again, is that something, because since the schools closed in the first lockdown, the government's been adamant that schools should stay open. Is that something that you're supportive of, that schools stay open as far as possible?
Well, I want education to continue. And what I have been lobbying for as much as I can, and I'm only just one person, is the Department for Education needs to enable remote teaching. So I want teaching to continue, and I want it to be supported so that 50% can be at school, 50% at home, or some variation and combination. We need to address the issue. Schools can generate infections. How do we stop it? Enable safer teaching. And we need to fund it, make it possible to teach remotely if it is at all possible. And I think it is.
Doctor, thank you. Dr. Bharat Pankhania, who's Senior Clinical Lecturer at the University of Exeter. While we're talking about coronavirus as well, it's worth saying that tomorrow we've got a special
Thanks for your time, Doctor.
Thank you.